Welcome to episode 185 of the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I'm Ashley Scott Myers, screenwriter and blogger over at sellingyourscreenplay.com. Today I'm interviewing writer-director Aaron B. Koontz. He just did a low-budget horror thriller script called Camera Obscura. He's got a great story which I think a lot of people will be able to relate to. He had a career working outside of the film industry and just decided to walk away and pursue his passion as a filmmaker. So we talk about that transition as well as digging into his new film. So stay tuned for that interview. If you find this episode valuable, please help me out by giving me a review in iTunes or leaving a comment on YouTube or retweeting the podcast on Twitter or liking it on Facebook. These social media shares really do help spread word about the podcast, so they're very much appreciated. Any websites or links that I mention in the podcast can be found on my blog in the show notes. I also publish a transcript with every episode in case you'd rather read the show or look at something later on. You can find all the podcast show notes at www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/podcast, and then just look for episode number 185. Just want to mention a free webinar that I'm doing on Wednesday, August 9th at 10 a.m. Pacific time. It's called How to Effectively Market Your Screenplay and Sell It. I'm going to go through all the various online channels that are available to screenwriters and give you my unfiltered opinion of them. I get questions all the time about the blacklist, about Inktip, about various screenwriting contests. So in this free webinar, I'm going to talk about my experiences with these various screenwriting services. Again, this webinar is completely free. Don't worry if you can't make it to the live event. I'll be recording this event, so if you sign up, you'll get a link to the recorded event after it happens. To sign up, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/free webinar, and the word free webinar is all lowercase and all one word. I will, of course, link to it in the show notes as well. Also, if you're already on my email list, you don't need to register for this webinar. Anyone on my email list will get the information on how to attend the webinar. So once again, if this sounds like something you might like to learn more about, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/free webinar. I'm going away for most of July, so I've pre-recorded a bunch of episodes, so I don't have any real updates on my low-budget feature film, The Pinch. But I do want to mention a live webinar that I'm doing in August where I will go through all the steps of how to produce a micro-budget feature film. The webinar is called The Pinch, Producing a Micro-Budget Feature Film. I'm going to do this online webinar on Wednesday, August 23rd at 10 a.m. Pacific time. I'm going to charge a small fee to attend, but if you're looking to produce your own micro-budget feature film, I think this will be something that you'll get tremendous value out of. I'm going to go through every aspect of production, how to write a micro-budget script, how to raise money for your project, how to do pre-production, production, and every aspect of post-production. As I close in on completion of my own micro-budget feature film, I think this is a great time to do this webinar as everything is very fresh in my mind. I'll be answering any and all questions you have about this process. I'm going to be going through my own budget line by line so you can get a first-hand look at exactly where I spent my money. If this sounds like something you might like to learn more about, just go to sellingyourscreenplay.com/class. Again, that's sellingyourscreenplay.com/class. And of course, I will link to it in the show notes as well. So now let's get into the main segment. Today, I'm interviewing writer-director Aaron B. Koontz. Here is the interview. Welcome, Aaron, to the Selling Your Screenplay podcast. I really appreciate you coming on the show with me today.
Yeah, the pleasure is all mine. Thanks for having me.
So to start out, maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background. Where did you grow up and how did you get interested in the entertainment business?
Yeah, so I grew up in the Midwest and then moved to Florida when I was 12 or 13. My family was a little strict kind of growing up, and I wasn't allowed to watch a lot of, I watched some movies, but definitely not horror movies or anything like that. So I had to kind of find my fix, and weirdly enough, my grandmother got HBO for free, and this was this epiphany for me, because I could bring in those old VHS tapes and record that 8-hour setting, SLP or whatever it was, or ESLP, whatever it was, and I'll bring tapes in and record overnight, and then come back in and bring a new tape and replace them. And I was at my grandmother's every day during the summer at this time. So, and of course, running on HBO, during the 80s, early 90s, it was all horror films, mainly. Mm-hmm. And it's when they would show those. So that was kind of my first, film school, I say, which was, kind of getting, understanding cinema and, and figuring out these thrillers and these weird movies. And, Clockwork Orange was one. And watching Clockwork Orange as a 10-year-old is a really weird experience,
Yeah.
But you learn a lot about filmmaking, and it just became this world that I had no idea how they did any of the things they did, and was so fascinated by it. So, and then from there, I had interest in writing. I was really into photography, and I love music. And what medium combines all three of those? And that's filmmaking. Yeah. So, went to film school, Full Sail in Orlando, and to kind of get my feet wet. And that was a good experience for me. And I enjoyed my time there. Was fortunate to go to school with some super talented people who. Adam Wingard is one of them. We were in class together, and now he's directing the new Kong Godzilla movie, which is just surreal for me to think of. But, I had some great talented people that we worked with, and then you graduate from school and reality kind of hits you, of what this industry is really like and how hard it is to try and, to truly get your feet wet and get those kind of gigs. So I worked freelance, really. I mean, anything and everything I could do. I would get coffee for anyone. I'd worked on, shows like The Pet Psychic and whatever was available in the Orlando area where I went to school. And took some weird gigs, and but none of them could really sustain. And finally, I kind of got out of the industry for a number of years and worked in software and whatnot. But then finally it was, this is what I'm supposed to do. And I knew that in my heart of hearts. So my co-writer, Cameron Burns, and I, we'd gone to film school together and both kind of got sucked into, life, right? Mm-hmm. And decided that, let's give this another shot. And I was looking at my, like Adam Wingard, for example, and Evan Katz, who also went to school, and he made cheap thrills, and he's been finishing a film called Small Crimes. It's on Netflix now. It's fantastic. And I was like, these guys, they've done it. Like, they just stuck with it, and I've watched their careers blossom, and it just kind of pushed me to say, I need to try and do the same thing. And I was in my early 30s, and I was like, if I don't try this now, I'm never going to do it. Mm-hmm. So, I left this, kind of safe job with this safe salary and this safe life, and, went into debt and did the whole thing and said, this is what I'm going to do. And the outcome of that is Camera Obscura, and that's kind of the summary that I can kind of give of where that kind of came from. But,
that's a great story. That's a great story, and I think it will be very inspiring because I know there's a lot of people out here that listen to this podcast that are in a similar situation where they, maybe were interested in film and their lives kind of got sidetracked. So no, thank you for sharing that. That's fantastic. So tell me,
sure.
At some point, did you move out to Los Angeles? I noticed on your IMDb page, you've done a number of short films. Did you do those short films while still working this other job? Maybe talk about that transition and exactly what did you do? Like, you quit this job. What did you do now? You just start doing short films? Did you have the script for Camera Obscura written? Talk about those steps going from another career and getting back into film.
Sure. No, it's a great question, and everybody's doing is different, right? And there's not necessarily been a right way, and that's one thing I would definitely stress. I thought when I graduated film school, I'm just going to LA. That is what it is. But then I ended up getting there was an internship that was at Universal Studios Orlando and their production group. And there was one intern spot that they were going to give, and those people from my class went for it, and a number of other classes in the film school, schools surrounding the Orlando area applied, and I got it. And it was, a really big deal, I thought, at the time, and was super excited about it. And that afforded me the ability to work on, in varying roles, a number of films, coming through the Orlando area, and that also stopped me from going to LA. And I don't know if that was right or wrong, good or bad. It's hard to kind of, hindsight is always 20/20. And, maybe had I left like, Adam and Evan did, and they started making their movies where I had a similar trajectory, who knows? But at the time, I was excited, and at the time, I think it was the right experience for me. And then, that I actually started editing, which was, one of the easier ways I found to make some side money, and there was a big editing company called Century 3 that was in Orlando, and I took a part-time position with them. And then when I was editing, I just started editing commercials for a game company in Orlando that makes EA Sports, that makes Madden and all those big sports games. And that was a transition because those production jobs was jumping around. I remember I was going to work on a film, The Punisher remake with Thomas Jane, John Travolta, and I was so excited to work on it, and I thought I was going to be a bigger position on the crew. And then as the weeks started leading up to the shooting, my position just got smaller and smaller, and then second unit, and then all of a sudden I was a PA, and I was there for 5 days. And I was like, oh wow, I needed this income, and it was just not reliable. And then EA kind of came calling, and they said, hey, we really like, what you've done on the editing side. You can continue editing commercials for us. And then in between that, you could have a job with them. And then that kind of sucked me into this other world. And like I said, life happened, right? And it was a great job. I really enjoyed my time there, and I worked in the game industry and the software world for a long time. But then I moved to Austin to take another position. And one of the reasons why I came to Austin was because I loved the film community that was here. Mm-hmm. And I knew that if I just moved to LA, I could just get swallowed up because I didn't even really know what I wanted to do. I knew I wanted to make movies, but what does that really mean? And I knew that I could write, but, did I have the ability time to write a feature while working the hours I was working? It was a tough balance. Mm-hmm. So I said, look, I'm going to, I took this, a nice job in Austin. I knew the community was here, and I started just networking. And then the first couple short films we made were while I had day jobs. And, the way I looked at it was my day job existed, so I had the ability to make my films on the weekends. Mm-hmm. So, that was the deal I had to make. And so I funded them myself, took the time, I would work extra hours to make sure that, I could make the money to make these happen. And that's where it really started to change, which was as, your first few films it's like this great achievement to get one done, even though they're short, but it's also disheartening because they're just not good. And it's hard because you want everything. You want to just jump in. Like, I'm a filmmaker now and I'm doing it. And the reality is you are a filmmaker. You just haven't found your voice yet, and you haven't fallen on your face enough yet. And, so you have to go through those moments. And I did. And, every project things just get a little better and a little better. And eventually you're like, hey, I'm not ashamed of this. and that's okay. It's okay to have that process, And I think, anyone who thinks that people just, fall into the success, it's just not the case. They'll all tell you there's films that exist with all these great filmmakers out there that they don't want you to see that are from their time pre-film school and, and whatnot. So, and that's where it started. But then there was, the company I was with at the time, they decided they were going to close some of their main headquarters were in California and in San Francisco, and they were going to close some offices. And they offered me a position to go to San Francisco. And I had just made a few short films and we played some festivals and had some nice buzz. And I was starting to feel a little more confident as a filmmaker. Mm-hmm. And it was like, well, you need to go to San Francisco now, or you could take the severance package. And I talked it over with my long-term girlfriend, and we were like, what do I do? If I take this, it's a great job, and I'm set for my career. Or I could take the severance and just live off that for the next 6 months, spread it out as much as I could, and just write and do nothing but write. And that's what I decided to do. I'm going to take this time and use it as an investment. And that's when I wrote Camera Obscura, was during that time. And ended up writing a few other screenplays as well that I'm hoping to start moving into even after this one. But that's where it all started, you know, and I had to make that decision, which was tough, you know,
Yeah.
it was tough.
Yeah, no, I can see that would be very scary. So let's dig into Camera Obscura. Maybe to start out, you can just give us a quick pitch or logline for the film, and then we'll dig into some of the specifics on it.
Sure, yeah. So, you know, Camera Obscura centers around Jack, who was a war photographer that, you know, witnessed some pretty atrocious things overseas. And he met a woman, Claire, out there, and she was from Germany, and they decided to come back. He talked to her into moving back to the States, and their idea was to get married and start a family. But then, you know, what he witnessed as a war photographer started to wear on him, and he started showing symptoms of PTSD and kind of threatened their relationship a little bit. So he had to go through some therapy, and when we started Camera Obscura, it's about 18 months in to their relationship. He's finally starting to get kind of a grasp on what's going on, but he's given up photography as a whole. And their anniversary is coming up, and Claire gives Jack a gift, and it's this old antique camera that she got at an auction where she works as a realtor. And it's like, look, we want you to get back on the saddle. Try this again. You know, this was your passion. It's like, I can't imagine you not picking up the camera again. And that is the catalyst to, you know, Jack trying to prove to the world and to himself that he's better. And then through this process, he starts taking some photographs, and mysterious images start showing up, and he starts to kind of question his sanity, are these real, or what's really going on? And it leads Jack into this kind of spiral into madness a little bit, and becomes a dark, weird psychological thriller.
Mm-hmm. Now, where did the genesis of this this film come from? And I can't help but sort of notice your own story where you kind of got diverted from your true passion, and then, you know, here you are coming back to it as a filmmaker. But what's the seed, sort of the genesis of this idea?
Yeah, you know, it really kind of formed out of 3 different stories that I wanted to tell, and none of them really felt right. One was I was working up north in Chicago at a software company, a game company, that is, and there was a man in the elevator. He had just been on vacation, his coworker, and he mentioned that he went to South America and he was taking photographs, but then the locals would kind of shy away. They wouldn't allow him to photograph them because they believed that it would steal their soul. And he was laughing about it. But then I started thinking, you know what, there's a really interesting kind of idea there. But then I immediately, you know, kind of pulled me back toward, well, I've seen this before, though. I've seen the haunted camera movie. You know, that exists. There's a lot of these it's almost a sub-genre, if you will, within horror. And so I was like, well, but I liked it still. I still was intrigued by it. So I had that. And then I also loved, this wasn't really necessarily another script. The first part actually became a short film called Aperture, but didn't really come together the way I expected it to. And I kind of tabled it and knew that I wanted to revisit it, but didn't really know how. And then shoot to a couple of years later, and I was really wanting to do something. I thought the most horrific genre films are when you take ordinary people and force them to do pretty gruesome things, or force them to be a killer, or revenge stories, things like that. But again, I had seen those movies. So I was like, okay, well, I like that concept, but where does that fit? And then the third element was mental illness and PTSD. And, you know, just in the news, you know, you're seeing all these images of all these horrible things that are happening, you know, overseas now. And those images are coming, you know, too often in our Facebook feeds and whatnot. And they're just hard to get out of my head. And the more I'm like, well, if I scroll through this and I see this, you know, on the internet, and I can't deal with what that image is later that evening, what was the person like who took that photograph? You know, what is that person's job like? What do they have to go through? And like, okay, well, that's interesting, you know. And then it became, well, they also suffer from PTSD, and you know, they don't have to be, you know, soldiers to have the same you know, ailment. So we started to put all that together, and then I was like, wait a second, if I merge these, I can create this unreliable narrator, which is a storytelling device that I've always loved. Ever since Usual Suspects, it's been something that I just loved how that could be utilized. So I thought that it gave me some levity, because we still don't know how PTSD really works. There's a lot of theories, and we're doing a lot of research, and we're getting better about treatment, but there's still a lot there to explore. And I mean, there's stories, one of which there was a man that went viral, was a video of this man who was running down the street and with a tackle on their cars. And it went viral because people thought it was just some quote-unquote bro who had road rage, and people thought he was crazy. But then when you did research on it, and I followed up, you realize that this was actually a veteran who had an incident, and something triggered in him, and his PTSD flared up, essentially, and he burned out. He was trying to do this. He had no idea he would kill people. He had no idea he was taking a battle like a golf club to these cars. And that's just part, because this is someone who went and fought for us and then came back and is dealing with stuff on this level. But then, as I was exploring this, well, now I have this levity. If my protagonist suffers from this, and this is possible within this world, now I have this, freedom narratively and from a script standpoint to really explore the psychological side of what this character might go through. And it gave me this palette to play with that I never expected to have. And that's when it all kind of merged together. And my co-writer, Kim Burns, and I, sat down and I said, look, I think I want to take the short film Aperture, these things I've researched here about PTSD and mental illness and more photography, and then let's look at these other pieces, with as far as creating some reliable narrator and what exists there, and then having someone forced to kill people. And I think we can put this together and see, let's put it in the blender and see if this could become a movie. And lo and behold, good.
Yeah. So let's dig into sort of the logistics of writing. You just mentioned your collaborator, and maybe you can talk about sort of how that process works for you guys. Do you sit in the same room and come up with an outline? Are you in different rooms? Do you then divide up scenes and each write a scene and then critique each other's scenes? Just maybe kind of run through sort of just the logistics of your process. I know there's a lot of people out there who have collaborators, and it's always interesting just to hear how other people do it.
Yeah. There are a number of different ways to do this, and again, just like getting into the film industry, I don't think there's going right or wrong way. Mm-hmm. With Cam and I, we get along really well. I think that really helps. We have a nice kind of like fun camaraderie that because writing can get really heavy and can be this burdensome thing, and if you have people that can keep the levity up and you can have fun with, I think it makes it easier. So that's something that helps. But as far as the real process, he'll come over to my house. We've got these big theater recliners and for like a media room, and sometimes we'll put on like a movie in the background, like a low volume, some music or whatever. And really, a lot of times we start. To me, writing is not just words to a page. It's also the conceptual pieces that you're trying to put together, and it's also observing the world, because truth really is stranger than fiction. So I'm always going through the news and finding all these weird stories and things that I'm reading. And the PTSD research I told you about was exactly an example of that. When I was like, did you hear about this guy? Like, this is kind of crazy. This is possible. What if we had a character that did that? And then that spirals into a discussion, and then we talk about what that character would be like and where they come from, and it becomes this like open discussion, and that's something that I try to do at the beginning of our writing sessions. Mm-hmm. And then now, let's say we're already in a script, like we've picked a project and we're already we know we want to write and we want to go in that direction. We outline together. For the most part, we're not necessarily writing in the screenplay at that time. It's more of just outline the scene, and then he'll go home and he'll take one of those scenes with them, and I'll take another scene, and then we come back the next day or the next week, depending on what our cadence is. Then we will share, give each other the scene that we each wrote, and kind of like nitpick it and revise it, from each other's sides, and then move on to something else. So, one interesting thing that we started to do was, for some reason, I write better in my car. Not write, again, not physically, because that's almost impossible to do, but the ideas just really seem to flow when I'm driving. Huh. So I'll take a recording device on my phone, and Camera and I will drive around, and we'll just talk out ideas. And then when we get something that clicks, I just record it onto this little app that I use on my phone. I record the scene, and then we go back and we start writing it. And it's and then like recently, that's a very new thing for us. But that is a new serial killer kind of screenplay that we're in the process of writing right now, and that stemmed from exactly that process. So that was fun and invigorating. But yeah, I mean, it's being in the same room, talking big picture ideas in beats, story beats, and then the dialogue and all that kind of comes in like individual sessions, and really trying to piece those out.
Yeah. So let's talk about sort of the next step. Once you have the script written, what were your steps to actually get this movie produced? How did you go about finding, the money, finding the producer, or however you ended up getting this made?
Well, I'm really big on, once a script is written, I usually like to kind of shelve that script for a little bit and write something else. And the reason is because sometimes you get so close to something that it's hard to see the forest of the trees. And I think that I miss little issues that pop up. Like you just kind of you're so lost in the weeds of what you're writing. And what I've noticed is that if I start writing something else, it becomes a little bit of a palate cleanser. It's like the ginger in your sushi. And I need that in order to properly taste the new piece. So if I start writing something, even if it's just for a couple of days, my mind shifts off. When I come back and read that previous script, I find problems with it. So, it's how to find those holes before you send it out to someone else that points out those holes to you. So that's something that's important to me, is to, you only get so many shots to put a script in front of someone. So I want to make sure that this really is good enough, that I really put everything I can into this because it's going to change again, obviously, once you get into that whole process. But that's something that I do before we even get to where you're talking about. And then another thing I do as well is we do table reads that are, and I know that's a common, it's common practice, but in a different way. We do them from a purely writing standpoint, and it's not about actors and all that. Although what we'll do is we'll get local actors and friends of ours to read certain parts, and then Cameron and I, and maybe a producing partner or whatnot, we'll just listen and we'll record everything, and then all of a sudden the dialogue is, oh wow, that dialogue feels off now, or you hear things performed, and it just changes your perspective. And then once we've done those two things, and then I read it back, and it's like, okay, this feels good. Then we send it out to colleagues for feedback. Then, and only after we've done all of that, do we finally say, okay, this is a film that we want to make. We feel like it's ready to be made, and now let's talk to some production companies, and let's find the right way to get in front of people, and get going the process to get this greenlit.
Yeah, and so specifically, what was it that got this greenlit?
So, we go through the whole process when we are putting together a package. So I'm also a producer. So from a producing standpoint, I look at this as I want a really in-depth pitch deck. I want to see visuals. I want to have an idea of the style and the tone you're going to go for. We also create like a tone reel that kind of, we edit together with other films, music, that kind of evokes the kind of emotion and the kind of, what the journey we think is going to feel like. So we put all that together, and then I would start on IMDb Pro. I mean, this is before I really had a lot of connections and knew some people. Not that I have a ton of connections now, but really know in the industry, that is. And I would look up similar films that had similar, what I thought were similar budgets or budgets that I'd heard about from, research. And then I would reach out to those production companies and find them on IMDb Pro, and I would send the script, or sometimes you don't send the script because they don't want that. I'll just send a pitch deck, and then hopefully that can kind of get their appetite, and then they'll request the script. And we went through that process for a while. One individual who kind of came on board early and really lucky about was Amir Zabetta, who was Orm Pelly's made Paranormal Activity. He was his best friend. They immigrated actually from Israel together. And in Paranormal Activity, when you see, Katie and them like jumping in bed, that's actually Amir on the other side of the wall with a broomstick, hitting the wall. And so I mean, he was knee deep in everything that was going on there. He was a producer on the project, and he happened to live, in North Austin, and saw one of my short films and really liked it. And so we met and had lunch, and he was able to open a few doors, and then he got me to Orm Pelly, who, read the script and gave us a bunch of notes, and I was very grateful for all of that. And, so that opened some possibilities, but nothing really happened. Like every time we thought, I did some big pitches with some big people, and every time I thought we were close, it would fall through. And this went on for years. It was all told, once I decided I wanted to write the film, it was a good 5-6 years, 8 years from the first concept. So, and that was 5-6 years of, I think we're going to get it made. That failed. This company definitely wants to do it. That fell through. So it was difficult. And then, I think it was 3 years ago, I reached out to Modern Cine and Andrew Van Houten. And he wasn't even really doing a lot of producing at the time, but he loved the pitch deck and thought that there was an opportunity there. And Andrew's made a bunch of genre films like All Shooters Die and Jet Phase, The Woman with Lucky McKee and everything. And so he had some good connections, and I know who he was in genre for a while, and was super stoked when he responded. But, he wasn't someone who could fund the film. He just knew some people. So, that opened some doors. And from there, we kind of decided to partner on the project. He really got behind it. And the crazy thing is, even when Andrew got behind it, and I still had Amir behind it, so we could say, from the producer of Paranormal Activity, which mattered, and especially international sales and whatnot. Even with all that together, there were still multiple times we had, here's the deal, this is going to happen. And actually, 1 month before the real deal happened, we lost another deal. We finally made it happen in November of 2015. It was when we finally got the first yes. But in October, I had a devastating no. And I remember I actually started this kind of, I call it my AA for filmmakers in Austin, but it's just this, I take some directors and writers and we get together, and it's just about dealing with, all the struggles and the pains of getting movies made, and then even when they're made, like getting them seen, and what does this all mean? And I started this group in October, and, just to kind of, I needed to know that there were other people out there that were dealing with what I was dealing with, because it was just really weighing on me, and as I mentioned, I had made some very big life decisions to push this forward. So, it was really pressing. And, I had to go back and take other jobs and stuff, to sustain myself. And so it was really disheartening. And then we went to AFM at the end of November, and of course everybody says AFM doesn't work, and, all this. And we had a sales agent, but, it was in that transitional period where sales agents weren't really necessarily getting films greenlit either anymore. So, we heard all the horror stories. And then, there happened to be a really ambitious, super intelligent executive producer named Justin Smith, who works with Chiller, Sci-Fi, USA Network. and they were trying to do more, quote unquote, I'm not a big fan of this term, but the elevated genre films and, smart thrillers, horror, sci-fi projects. Because they wanted to get away from, even though they didn't make a ton of money off those Sharknado films and whatever, they wanted to support a new day and date model of a different type of movie. And they had previously made a film called The Boy with Spectre Vision that I loved. It was this really dark, broody, brooding serial killer origin film, and about this young kid at this like abandoned hotel who, it's like what a serial killer's childhood looked like. And I just found it was just dark and mysterious, and the slow burn. I was like, but this is totally different than what I thought killer and sci-fi were all about. And then Andrew happened to have made a film with Chiller many years ago called Ghoul, based on a Brian Keene novel, and then they had just canceled a time slot, and so much of the studio system is they have a time slot and they need a film to fit into that time slot. And we just happened to be there. They wanted psychological horror, and I had the script. Andrew knew him. They were at AFM, and Andrew and him had this long talk, and then the next day, Andrew's like, I think they're going to make the movie. And everything changed. It was an amazing experience. They were such a great partner. Justin is the best, and and now I'm here talking to you.
Yeah, that's a great story of persistence. I know we're out of time, so I'm just going to fire off these last couple questions. We can do kind of a lightning round here. How can people see Camera Obscura? Do you know what the release schedule is going to be like?
Yeah, so June 9th, we're going to be in a few theaters, in Austin, in Los Angeles, New York, and Minneapolis. So if you happen to be in one of those cities, and then on June 13th, it'll be on VOD outlets everywhere. So, iTunes and all of that. So if you go to the website, I think it's Camera Obscura, filmonmovie.com, there you should be able to find, some links to where it's showing. But if you do any kind of regular streaming search, you'll be able to find plenty of outlets that'll have the film on June 13th.
Okay, perfect. And what's the best way for people to keep up with what you're doing? If you're on Twitter, Facebook, anything you're comfortable sharing, you can give us that now. And I round this stuff up and put it in the show notes so people can click over. But just anything you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah, sure. So you can find me on Twitter. It's at Aaron B. Koontz, KOONTZ, and all one word. And yeah, I'm happy to talk with anyone on there. And I love talking about making movies and what that's like, and and I think I know how lucky I am now to have gotten this one made, and I know how hard I truly know how hard this journey is. So, folks that are stuck in that rut, just know that everyone, I feel like, has a similar story. You just got to keep going. So, if you ever just want to vent or you want to talk about it, by all means, hit me up. I'd be happy to discuss, anything that we did that might be able to help anybody else moving forward.
Perfect. And you kept mentioning the pitch deck for Camera Obscura. Is that online, or is that anywhere where we could actually get a look at that? Because I'm honestly not sure what that even would look like. And it sounds like that was a big piece to getting people interested in this film.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know that I can make that public because I think the film now is kind of, it's not owned by me anymore. Sure. But I can say, really, all I'm talking about there is a visual representation where I say, who are the key players? I outline the film, you put a synopsis in, and you find that photography and imagery that you think evokes, the kind of style and tone that you want. And then maybe you put together like a cast wish list, but you give like bios about who's involved. And then, there's a slider too that kind of talks about why you think this might be good for the market, where you think this kind of, fits in. And to me, it's different than like a business proposition. Like that's a very formal thing. To me, this is just a, high level kind of get an understanding of what the film's about, who the filmmaker and primary partners are, what kind of movie we're trying to make, And then sometimes we'll have different versions that are out there depending on who we're talking to. But sometimes we'll have a budget, a top sheet or whatnot, attached as well, just to we're seeking investments, and here's the kind of movie we want to make. Here are the people involved, and we need to make that visually appealing. We need to have something that attracts their attention, and gives a good idea of what the story is just by thumbing through it really quick.
Yeah, perfect. Well, Aaron, I really appreciate this. Has been a great interview, and your story at the end of the day, it really comes down to persistence, and I think that's a fantastic story. So congratulations on getting this done, and I wish you all the luck in the future.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And I think you're working on a horror film yourself, or a script, so best of luck with that. It's great to hear from other genre writers out there. So very, very happy to be here and talk to you about this, and thank you for watching our film, and hopefully other people enjoy it as well.
Perfect. Sounds good. I wish you luck. Take it easy.
All right. Thank you so much. Cheers.
A quick plug for the SYS Screenwriting Analysis Service. It's a really economical way to get a high-quality professional evaluation on your screenplay. When you buy our 3-pack, you get evaluations at just $67 per script for feature films and just $55 for teleplays. All the readers have professional experience reading for studios, production companies, contests, and agencies. You can read a short bio on each reader on our website, and you can pick the one who you think is the best fit for your script. Turnaround time is usually just a few days, but rarely more than a week. The readers will evaluate your script on 6 key factors: concept, characters, structure, marketability, tone, and overall craft, which includes formatting, spelling, and grammar. Every script will get a grade of pass, consider, or recommend, which should help you roughly understand where your script might rank if you were to submit it to a production company or agency. We can provide an analysis on features or television scripts. We also do proofreading without any analysis. We will also look at a treatment or outline and give you the same analysis on it. So if you're looking to vet some of your project ideas, this is a great way to do it. We will also write a logline and synopsis for you if you think that's not something you're good at doing. You can add this logline synopsis service to an analysis, or you can simply purchase it as a standalone product. As a bonus, if your script gets a recommend from a reader, you get a free email and fax blast to my list of industry contacts. This is the exact same blast service I use myself to promote my own scripts, and it's the same service I sell on the website. It's a great way to get your script into the hands of producers who are looking for material. So if you want a professional evaluation of your screenplay at a very reasonable price, check out www.sellingyourscreenplay.com/consultants. In the next episode of the podcast, I'm going to be interviewing writer-director Joe Taylor. He recently did a short film which you can watch free at screeningnow.com. The film is called Last Call. And again, you can watch it free at screeningnow.com, and I recommend that you do that hopefully before next week's interview. Just seeing the movie will give you a bit more context, and as I said, it's free, so there's really no downside to just going and doing it. It's a fairly short film. I think it's less than about 12 minutes, something like that. He spent around $4,000 on producing this film, so again, that will give you kind of a good idea about what sort of production values he was able to bring for the money. This is the third installment of the short film showcase I've been doing. Over the last few months, I've been interviewing some short film makers and bringing them on to talk about their short films. This is the third one. We started out doing a low budget, interviewing a writer-director who had done a short film for $200, and then a few weeks ago we did one at the $1,500 level. This is the $4,000 level, and then in a few weeks I have one more on who did a short film at about the $15,000 level. So again, if you're thinking about doing a short film yourself, these are great interviews for you to listen to. These filmmakers are super down to earth and really willing to dig into a lot of the nitty-gritty details of how they went about producing these films. I'm a big proponent of writing and directing and potentially producing a short film. It's a great way to get some credits. It's a great way to get an IMDb credit. It's a great way to see your work in action. You will learn just a tremendous amount by actually writing a script and then seeing it performed by actors and going through that whole process. So hopefully these are very helpful to you. But in any event, that episode will be out next week. So that's today's show. Thank you for listening.